Hi. Today I'm going to talk about if I think that mythical creatures exist. If things like vampires, fairies, aliens, unicorns, if they exist. And how these legends came to be according to what I know. Okay, let's start with vampires. I think vampires could exist. I'm not sure if vampires do exist, but according to everything that I know about vampires, I think it's a legitimate possibility that they could exist, and maybe we just don't know about them because they're good at hiding. I think it's unlikely, but I am curious where stories of vampires originated, because it's an interesting thing to make up, to create. I do know it seems like people throughout history have been obsessed with the concept of living forever, of eternal life. And vampires supposedly live forever. I think that it's funny that there are different things that are vampires' weaknesses. For example, garlic and wooden stakes. Vampires also can't go out in the daylight. They only can live in the darkness. I think that maybe a real-life example of a vampire are vampire bats. And maybe people got the idea of vampires because they saw vampire bats, and their imagination got carried away. The next mythical creature are mermaids. Do mermaids exist? Once again, I think mermaids could exist. The ocean is very deep, and we haven't explored a lot of it. So maybe in the depths of the ocean there are mermaids. But once again, I think it's unlikely. I think it would be cool if mermaids did exist, and I'd like to be a mermaid. I like hanging out at the ocean. I like swimming, and I think it would be fun to have a tail. The next mythical creature I want to talk about are fairies. Some cultures think that 100% fairies are real, that they exist. I think that people in Ireland and people in Iceland think that fairies or gnomes exist out in the hills, out in nature. I can't remember what specifically those beliefs are, only that in Iceland and maybe Ireland, people think that these creatures exist. I personally have always loved the concept of gnomes or fairies. And I remember that I loved Tinkerbell in the movie Peter Pan. It would be fun to be a fairy because you get to fly. I think flying would be fun. Another creature that some people think exists are unicorns. I think out of all of the creatures that could exist, a unicorn is very likely because unicorns are just horses with horns on their head. I'm not sure what the magical properties of unicorns are. I think it said that unicorn blood can be used in potions and spells. I'm trying to think of what other mythical creatures I know. One that comes to mind is Bigfoot. Apparently, there's a big monster-like creature roaming around the woods, and he's very hairy, and his feet are giant. They're big. That's why he's called Bigfoot. But I think that people like to make up stories. And maybe Bigfoot is real. I don't know. But I think it's more likely that they just saw an animal. Another creature that's a mythical creature is the Loch Ness Monster. The Loch Ness Monster is said to live in a lake, and it's a giant serpent-like creature. Some people claim to have seen the Loch Ness Monster and to have taken pictures, but a lot of the pictures are blurry, and in this modern day and age, I think that AI can be used to fake a lot of photos. So, I don't really trust the photos. I think the Loch Ness Monster could exist, but who knows? I think the world would be kind of cool if all of these creatures existed. And I think that's the reason that if they're fake, people took the time to invent them. Because it's kind of fun to think about a world with mythical creatures. What do you think? Do you think a lot of mythical creatures are real? Or do you think they're just stories?